Hello, welcome to this new live that we're doing about the Atma board. No, about Atma board. We'll be looking at Atma board today, and we're continuing on. We'll be looking at the chapters about ego, Neti, meditative practice. Those are the things that we're going to be discussing today. So, um, so I won't take any more time. I'll go straight into reading the scripture, reading the text, and so it's Atma board that I am reading. And if you're watching this on TikTok, you can come live onto my YouTube channel and watch me there. You can write comments there. That'd be great. So let's begin with this first one where it's about ego. So the first thing we have to understand is if the soul is without any imperfection, how can this philosophy explain the daily experiences of pleasure and pain? Now, this is the one thing that we always kind of question. If we are living in this world and we have issues and we have problems and we have to deal with some things we like, some things we dislike, how can we say that reality itself is changeless? It's a it's a really good question. So to answer this, Adi Shankaraji has come up with these next few lines, next few verses, which will explain the ego. So verse 25 is the self combines its two portions of existence and consciousness to the instinct of intellect. When non-discrimination is also added to it, there arises the notion of I know, etc. So let's explain this a little bit. Let's get to know what this means. Thank you, Sue. Nice to see you. Um, so the existence and consciousness parts of the soul, or the Atma, uh, form their image on the intellect. The decision-making tendency of the intellect gets combined with it indiscriminately. Due to this superimposition of characteristics of Atma and intellect on one another, we assume our identity to be the same as the intellect. This gives rise to the notion of I know and I exist. However, the soul remains unattached to the insentient tendencies of the intellect and stays untouched by it, just as the space remains pure even in the presence of air dust particles. So, to explain this a little bit more simpler and maybe with and utilizing the example that is given here. For example, when there's dust in space, the space is not affected by the dust, and it doesn't, that space does not get allergies from being in the dust. The space remains unaffected. Likewise, the Atma, despite what the intellect may portray or what the intellect may believe itself to be, that will not affect the Atma. The Atma remains ever free, ever pure. So, therefore, this is how we can understand. But when it says, I know and I exist, remember the Atma is beyond these things. The Atma is beyond this aspect. Um, so the insentient tendencies of the intellect. So even though the Atma may say, or the appearance of the or the Atma against the Atma, the intellect may say, I know and I exist. But that doesn't mean that the Atma is a separate identity. It's not a separate identity. It is the same as Brahman. Now, Adi Shankaraji wants to explain this even further and wants to make sure that we do understand this. So in the next verse, he says, there is no deformity in self, and there is no knowledge in intellect also. That's interesting. But the living being knows it all to be within him, thinks that he is a doer, seer, and gets disillusioned. This is the whole reason why we have problems. Hello, Joe Star. um, on TikTok. Come and join me on YouTube. You can write comments on there, and um, it'd be great to have you on here. Thank you for the like on YouTube. I really appreciate it. If you just joined, just write something in the chat. And if this is your first time, you can subscribe to the channel as well. So, but this is an interesting verse, and this explains the whole issue we have when it comes to people not understanding that the background awareness is Brahman, this formless awareness, and at the forefront is this material world, and that's how we live. We can't ignore the material world, but we do not need to identify with it nor associate ourselves with it. We can, meaning associate our identity to it. What we can do is ensure that we identify completely with the Atma and understand we are the Atma, and that the body and mind is just having to do the functions as it should do. And it's a limited existence, a limited identity, but it's not the limitless Brahman. That's all we need to understand and totally invest our understanding in. Hello, it's Satyaj. Okay, no problem. I'm doing good. Good to see you, Tompa. Nice to see you. Hi. I'm not going to say your name, but yes, I would say I'm Hindu. I am talking about Hindu texts, so yes, definitely. Um, so let's go into this verse 26. There is no deformity in self, and there is no knowledge in intellect also. But the living being knows it all to be within him, thinks that he is the doer, seer, and gets disillusioned. See, once we get knowledge, because we're human beings, we just get so trapped in thinking, oh, I know it all, or I am the person that has realized everything. I am the person that knows everything. And that's where we get disillusioned. We start thinking we are the meditators, we are the people doing this whole spiritual work. And that's where we get disillusioned, when we completely think that we are the doer. Remember, in the Bhagavad Gita, we've been looking at this in the podcast, how we're not the doer. The Atma is never the doer. Yeah, the body mind may appear to be doing something, but essentially, if one understands that they are not the doer, then every action is is done as a karma yogi, and that's the whole point: is to be in the non-doership. But it's difficult. It's not easy, and this is why these foundational texts actually help us to practice those teachings. A lot of people, they don't practice these teachings because they think it's not practical, but they never practice it to know if it's practical or not. And this is what annoys me sometimes, when people tell me, oh, these teachings aren't practical. But I say, you know what, if you understand them and then practice it, then tell me if it's practical or not. Because a lot of times we just we theorize in our minds, and we just think, oh, is it possible? We practice it here in the head instead of actually performing the practice. So that's why it's really important that we understand that we have to practice first. That's the number one thing before we say something is not, is not practical. If you come on here, do like this video, and subscribe to the channel, give a comment, and I will answer questions at the end of each section. So right now I'm looking at ego as a section. After I've done this, I will answer questions. We will do that. So let me just go into this verse 26. As the soul is changeless and eternal, there can be no deformity in it, and intellect, on account of its being insentient, it's not really living. The intellect cannot survive without a body and mind. So, and it can never be conscious of itself. So that's why it's insentient. And it cannot be conscious by itself. It cannot have its own existence. So this wrong identification or superimposition exists due to ignorance, and it makes us experience worldly pleasure and pain. So because we think we are this body and this mind, we wrongly identify with the body and mind, and therefore we experience worldly pleasure and pain. We go into the opposites of all a kind of experiences. So sometimes we feel happy, sometimes we feel sad, sometimes we feel pleasure, we feel pain, hot, cold, all the pairs of opposites. But Adi Shankaraji says this is the wrong identification. The real identification is that this Atma is changeless and eternal. So therefore, does any pleasure and pain exist in the eternal Atma? No. In the changeless Atma? No. So this is how we can understand this with a bit more clarity. And then until this delusion is gone, that we are just this body and mind, we think ourselves as a doer, mortal, experiencer, and get bothered by everything around us. So this wrong identification is what causes everything where we get affected by life. In fact, if you think about it, if you function from the level of the Atma as that you are Brahman, this formless awareness, and if you then perform your actions and you live your life accordingly in that awareness, you will find you'll get less bothered by things, less impacted by things. Where once something would really annoy you, now doesn't annoy you as much. Where something would irritate you, no longer does it irritate you. At one time, you used to just get angry at the sight of something not going right. Now you don't even get angry. Yeah. Before, when you were all alone, you used to feel lonely. Now you don't feel lonely. All those things is what occurs when somebody truly, truly understands who they really are. And that is the whole purpose of life, is to understand who we are, is to understand what we are. And this is the point of Adi Shankaraji's line, that there is no deformity in the self, there's no changing element in the self. Therefore, it is perfect, it is complete. This body and mind will, at the end of the day, something wrong will happen to the body. Nobody leads a completely healthy life. We try to live a healthy life. We eat healthy food and we look after our body through exercise, but we cannot guarantee that we will be in good health all the time. Same thing with the mind. One day our memories may disappear. Our We may start forgetting things. We may start we may get a stroke and therefore we're impaired. All those things can happen. And the thing is, what we need to understand, this formless awareness, this Atma, cannot be affected. This Atma will never be affected. This Atma will remain as it is, pure and complete. And this is what all the saints and sages have been telling us to do and telling us to practice, but we don't. I'm not saying, by the way, do not look after your body or do not look after your mind. Those are very important things. And actually, what I find is, if you're truly spiritual and you truly understand that you are the Atma and you are the non-doer, you actually look after your body and mind a lot more, because you see this as an offering from existence. Say, even if you believe in God, you will see this as a gift from that God. Therefore, instead of misusing this body and mind, you utilize it for its purpose, which is, one, to know itself, which is to know its true self, its true identity, which is this formless oneness and this awareness. Second, you look after it because it's the vehicle that's going to take you to enlightenment. So that's the whole point. Namaste, Semina. Nice to see you. I'm Say, if you're on TikTok, come and join me on YouTube. You can write comments on there too, or you can watch it on TikTok. It's absolutely up to you. But nice to see you. Thank you for joining in. Thank you for the likes. So yes, so what we can understand is, from this, when we are the Atma, we're no longer bothered by the pairs of opposites. But if we believe we are this body and mind only, then problems occur. And even if we say we believe we are the Atma, is not enough. We have to know it, you know. Say if we think we believe it, then what happens when we just believe it? It just becomes memory. Therefore, it's of the mind. Therefore, one time we feel like the Atma, the next minute we don't. That's not real. That's not real spirituality. You know, you have to know you're the Atma. You have to experience things as the Atma. And how can we experience this thing called the Atma? Adi Shankaraji will go into this. He'll give some meditative practices. But the thing is, one thing to know is that go to that which does not change according to any experience, which is not impacted by any memory, because this awareness is beyond memory, is beyond our thoughts, beyond our emotions, beyond our karma. This awareness is always there, is unbothered by everything else that goes around it, yeah, or happens in it. Everything is contained in it, but it does not contain itself in anything. It does not get impacted by anything. That's the Atma. It's very, sometimes these things are very subtle and very difficult to understand. But once we do understand it, life becomes a lot more easier. Trust me. This stuff that Adi Shankaraji is saying in Atma Bodh is really simple and something we can all practice. We can all adhere to. So, in the next verse, he says, confusing oneself to be a mortal living being, Jeev or the doer, a person fears just like someone who regards a rope as a snake. Once you know that you are not a mortal living being, but the witnessing supersoul, you will become fearless. Beautiful. Um, I think this is just, again, one of the ways where we can understand the truth so much better and so much easier. So, for example, the example here given is just like someone who fears when they see a rope and they think it's a snake. So, say it's a twilight, it's the evening, you're taking a walk in the forest, and suddenly you see something dangling, and you look at it and you think, "Oh, that must be a snake." It's got the shape of a snake. But and what happens is you then have fear. You're like, if I go near that snake, I'm going to get bitten. I could get attacked. I could get bitten. Things like that will occur. But say you stay in your track and say you stay there for the night and you don't move, and then in the morning you start seeing that actually it wasn't, or say you use your mobile phone and you turn the flashlight on and you see that actually it's not a snake, but it's a rope. Then therefore what happens to your fear? It vanishes away. The fear no longer exists because you know what it is. You know it's not a snake, you know it's a rope. So the confusion disappears. And that's the same thing, that due to ignorance, when we identify ourselves with the image of the Atma in the intellect, we experience its pleasure and pain in ourselves. So, how can this wrong identification be removed? By regular study and listening of Vedanta principles, or I would even say Buddhist principles, any dharmic principles, in my opinion, will help you in this. We get the right discrimination, the right discernment, and then knowledge. With this knowledge, which is, for example, knowing the rope to be a rope, not the snake, therefore knowing the Atma to be the Atma, not the body and mind, as your true self. With this knowledge, we come to know that we are not this image of the Atma in the intellect, or the Jeev, or the appearance of the Jeev, but the ever present, conscious, blissful self. So the Satchit Ananda, yeah, that Atma, that is what we are. This revelation removes our ignorance and fears. So this revelation removes our ignorance and fears permanently, just as the fire burns the wood. Yeah, what remains is ashes. That's what will remain. The wood is never there now. The wood has gone when there's a fire, and the wood disintegrates into ashes. Likewise, our fear and our ignorance, dissolve away when we understand what we really are. So, a mortal living being, or the Jeev, experiences pleasure and pain till their are attachment and aversions in the intellect. So if your discernment is still attached to certain things, if your mind is still attached to certain things, your ego identifies with the body and mind, then there will always be attachment and aversion, dislikes and likes. That's what it's talking about, rag and dvesh. Once we purify our intellect from these defects, we become free from our identification of a mortal living being, Jeev, and its associated miseries. So, therefore, we no longer associate our Jeev as a separate entity, but we understand Adi Shankarji's line of Brahma Satyam Jagat Mithya Jiva Brahmeva Nam Apara. So we understand that this Jeev and Brahman is one and the same. And that's essentially what it is. That is what we need to understand is our true self. So therefore, if we understand that this Jeev is Brahman, is there any misery now? Is there any suffering now? Is there any pain now? Is there any loneliness now? No. Is there any happiness now? Happiness is our natural state. Peacefulness is our natural state. In fact, not happiness, but blissfulness, peacefulness, tranquility, serenity. All those things are attributes of the Atma, associate with our mind associating as the Atma, with our Jeev associating with Brahman, this Atma. So cheers to you. And Atma is like a diamond, indestructible and beautiful. Absolutely. Absolutely. So the next line, next verse, 28, is in intellect, sense organs, it is the self alone which shines just as a lamp lights a pot. These materialistic sense objects are insentient, so they cannot light themselves. So all our sense organs, the eyes, ears, nose, etc., get their functional capability from the soul as they are insentient and unable to work. So they're powered by this Atma. Moreover, these sense organs cannot make the soul known. So these sense organs that we have, the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, I forgot what else there is there that I'm missing. But all these things, they cannot make the soul appear. The soul is formless and imageless, colorless. Therefore, the senses cannot perceive this. So it is similar to the case of the lamp and the objects, example, the pot that it lights. These objects cannot make the lamp known as they have no such capability. So, for example, the pot can only be known when it's lit up, really. However, the soul can be experienced, this Atma can be experienced in the sense organs by sharp and pure intellect as it pervades them like space. So the one way to do this and the one way to understand this is if we use our discernment to understand what is real and unreal, what is changeless and changing, and we understand the difference between the formless and the forms, then we can understand, then we can experience the Atma. Then our intellect can take us there, then our mind can take us there. But it takes time, it takes practice, it takes effort, it takes a lot of attention and rigorous discipline to get there. So, since the soul is not illuminated by the intellect, does it require some other means to observe it? This is a question that we're thinking of now. So, in the next verse, Adi Shankaraji says, just as a light lamp does not require the help of another light lamp for making itself known, similarly, the self, which is a form of knowledge itself, Gyan Sarup, does not require any other knowledge. So, as the soul is of the form of knowledge, is a form of Gyan, of consciousness, bliss, light, it does not require any other means to get itself revealed. It's self-revealed, it's self-realized. It is its own illuminator like a lamp. For example, if there is a candle that is already lit, it doesn't need another candle to give it light again. It's already lit, it's already shining. Likewise, Once the Atma understands that it is Gyan itself, the Gyan Sarup, Atma Sarup, meaning the blissful self, once it knows that it is that, then it will not be, it doesn't need anything else to understand that it is the Atma. It doesn't need anything external to understand what it really is. So that is why this path that Adi Shankaraji has given is about self-realization. Self-realization is the key, and you once you know this, you don't need anything else because you now know everything that needs to be known. So that was ego. And we'll now go on to Neti Neti. But before we get to that chapter, I was asked a question by Mr. Nuts, that how would we reach enlightenment? Well, without sounding like a pseudo non-dualist, that there is no enlightenment to reach. Enlightenment is what you already are. You know, this very line that we looked at previously, um, that just as the light lamp does not require the help of another light lamp for making itself known, similarly, the self, which is a form of knowledge itself, does not require any other knowledge. You don't need anything else. You are already enlightened. The only thing that you need to do is understand that that you are enlightened. And when you understand that you are enlightened, that doesn't mean that you then look at other people and say they are in ignorance. No, once you understand who you are and what you are, you will see that in others, because there is only what you are. Therefore, there's no others either. There's only really what is this formless awareness. So that is the answer to your question. So how would we reach enlightenment? Is first through right knowledge, having the knowledge that will get you there, then practicing that knowledge. Yeah, understanding that knowledge and then practicing that knowledge, and then you will reveal, it will be revealed to you that you are already enlightened. And that's all. I hope that answers your question, Mr. Nuts. If you're still watching this, um, but if not, no worries. But you may have another question on top of that, or anyone listening may have another question that they may want to have addressed from this, and you may ask before we go on to Neti Neti, which will be quite interesting. Let's see. This is very beautiful. Very beautiful book, Atma Bodha. I hope that each one of us reads this text for sure. So, Neti Neti literally means that this self, this Atma, is not this and not even this. We need to discard all the inputs of our sense organs. When we keep on discarding everything like this, what remains in the end, or that which cannot be discarded, is referred to as the self. Now, with Neti Neti, this concept of Neti Neti has become really popular under, especially under Sri Ramana Maharishi, Nisargadatta Maharaj, Atma Krishna Menon, and some of their pupils or disciples after have also talked about this. But I just want to mention that with those three that I mentioned there, they have maintained the scriptures as the base, and they have maintained that it's through the right understanding and through following what the guru says that one gets to the right understanding. So it's very important that we approach a guru if we can, With a concept like Neti is always regarded as an easier way to get to the truth. And it is. When you discard everything, then what remains? That's the whole point of Neti. So you discard everything, you say not this, not this, and eventually just get to what only is, where you cannot discard any further. So if you think about your own awareness, you can discard everything else that your awareness perceives, but you cannot discard awareness itself. So this is the whole point of Atma board, and then this particular thing about Neti is about that wisdom, that knowledge. So Adi Shankarji, from verse 30, and verse 30, and I'll tell you to what verse, because to verse 36 talks about Neti specifically. So here is the here is verse 30. One should negate all the limiting adjuncts using the statement, truth is not this, truth is not even this, and then know the oneness of soul and supersoul by using the great statement, you are that reality, Tattvamasi. So this is very, very good. I really like this. Let's explain this even further. We do not get enlightened by this common knowledge of the Atma. Rather, when we remove what is not self, by careful reasoning and practice of Vedanta, we get to know our real self, which is full of light and bliss. It is when we are truly enlightened in this realization, we know intrinsically that we are one with the Supreme Self and that there is no division between us whatsoever. This is interesting. So it is the right knowledge that sets us free. So it's not just about knowing you're the Atma, but it's understanding that this Atma and Brahman is one and the same, that they are not different, that they've always been the same. We have thought the soul is different and the super soul is different, or God is different, or Paramatma is different. It's all one. If this Paramatma is oneness, if this Brahman is oneness, then we cannot say that the soul is separate or even a part of this. To say there is a part to this means there is two. Therefore, the truth then is not non-dual. But because truth is non-dual and is a non-dual realization, there is only oneness. Only oneness remains, only oneness is, only oneness will be forever. Oneness was, is, and will be. That is the ultimate understanding. So then he says, and he says by using this great statement, Tattvamasi, you are that. You are that reality. It's by understanding that. If Atma is not sentient, is Brahman sentient? No, actually, it doesn't say that I don't think it ever said the Atma is not sentient. I think it just says. Let me take a look for you because I don't want to give you any wrong knowledge. Because my understanding would be no, so your senses are insentient, they're not sentient. So that's the way to understand that. So you're so they are sentient only because of the Atma. So the Atma is sentient. And therefore that would mean that Brahman is also sentient, according to this text in particular. So let me go back to Neti. So Verse 31 will go into this a bit more. But no, it might be my fault that you misheard me. I may have said something by mistake, so don't worry. So, verse 31 is born out of ignorance, visible objects like the body are perishable as bubbles. Know that I am completely different from everything, and I am stainless Brahman or unchanging reality. So, whatever is seen from our eyes, including our bodies, gets destroyed like the bubbles on a water stream. You know, the bubbles you see on the ocean, on the waves, they disappear. They have a very short life. Or when we, you know, you know, when we blow bubbles with those toys when we were younger, and you know, the bubbles never lasted for long. You know, they only had a limited time. Literally, some went straight away, some would pop after, you know, a couple of seconds. So just like that, this body, our thoughts, emotions, everything that we can see with our eyes, including our body, gets destroyed like the bubbles on a water stream. That's their existence. Very limited existence. We don't have much time. We don't, we have a very limited time span. Therefore, in fact, when you understand that you have a limited time span, then you work more towards your spirituality. Then you want to work harder in your spiritual journey. Um, that's the only time when you understand that all this is going to go. That does not mean that you do not make money, you do not go to work. No, you do all those things. But you know that that is not everything. You know that there is something beyond this. All these are means to an end. That's all. But this Brahman, this understanding of what you really are, that is eternal. So you can live, and you're not living dual lives either. You're not living one material life and spiritual life. It comes together with the right understanding. Anybody that believes that spirituality is different to your material life, in my opinion, is making a fool out of you and is ensuring that you do not understand the truth. They're taking you for a ride. So, this is what I want to establish also, that there is a oneness of material and spiritual life. So, that which is real always remains. We know this from my podcast on the Bhagavad Gita. We've been discussing this, that the whole of chapter 2 is based on understanding what is real, what always remains. So once we discard everything which changes and is perishable from our definition of self, reality alone shines in its magnificence. So once we get rid of everything, once we get rid of the limitations of, um, once we understand this body is limited, once we understand this mind is limited, once we understand that everything we see and perceive is limited, and that everything is subject to change, but this Atma, this Brahman, this reality does not change. This reality cannot be. Why does it not change? First of all, it has no form, it has no image, it has no color, it has no shape, it has no boundary, it has no limit, it has, it is infinite. All of those are the attributes of that Atma. Therefore, it cannot be mixed in any way, it cannot be manipulated in any way. That is why it's real. And that is what we need to understand. So once we discard everything which changes and is perishable from our definition of self, reality alone shines. Now think about this. If you get rid of everything that is perishable here, right now, if you got rid of this microphone, this laptop, this the room that you're in, the house that you're in, the city that you're in, the country you're in, the planet that you're on, the the galaxy you're in, the solar system you're in, the universe that you're in. If you get rid of every single notion of universe and the space that this is expanding into, if you get rid of all of that, what remains in that process? Your awareness. Your awareness remains. You got rid of everything else, but your awareness has remained. You got rid of your own body. What remains? Your awareness. And that is what Neti is. That is what Adi Shankaraji is talking about when he says, discard everything which changes and is perishable. This body is perishable too, but the awareness that this body is perishable and this whole universe and it's whatever it's contained in is perishable, because that could be changing and modifies accordingly. What remains is that eternal, formless, limitless awareness or consciousness. That's why Advaita Vedanta is more of a consciousness only model rather than everything is consciousness model. Both lead to the same outcome, but when we say consciousness only, it gets rid of confusion, because sometimes we can get confused with why limiting things can be consciousness. Yeah, but in Vedanta we're able to comprehend both. So yes, consciousness remains. JJ, yeah, absolutely right, sir. So that is the beauty. This verse 31 of Atma Bodh is the one to remember, and the one to say that I would like to say to you: if you remember this one verse, you will be absolutely fine in your spirituality. That you will have no issues with your spirituality. You will be forever. Um, um, so so I'll go into verse 32. Sorry, I had a text message, so I was looking at that. So let's see, verse 32. As I am different from the body, I have no birth, old age, weakness, death in me. As I am without the sense organs, I have no connection with the sense objects such as sound, form. So what's interesting here is Adi Shankaraji, he's now talking about the Atma, consciousness, awareness itself. He's not talking about anything else now. He's not addressing the body. He's addressing what we really are, which is this Atma, this non-dual reality. So there are as many as 6 shortcomings in the body that are not present in me. So birth, existence, growth, old age, disease, and death. I'm different from the sense organs and have no connection with their subjects like sight, sound, touch, taste, breathing. So the Atma has no relation to those. Since I am unattached to these on the account of being changeless, any miseries or pleasures due to them also do not exist in me. This is really interesting and really important to understand that because we are changeless, it doesn't matter what we may perceive through sight, sound, taste, smell, anything like that. It should not move us one bit. When I say move us, what us am I talking about? I'm talking about awareness, consciousness. Your body and mind may feel whatever, but your Atma will remain eternal and free from all those things. So that is the way to understand. So that, again, another way to understand, another method to understand why you are this changeless Atma. So, verse 33, not being the mind, I am free from sorrow, attachment, hatred, fear. As per the statement of Upanishad, I'm neither vital airs nor mind, but pure. So Thank you, Susan. Thank you for enjoying the Bhagavad Gita commentary videos. Truly appreciate that you like them. So our mind experiences pleasure, pain, attachment, malice, greed, desire, which is different from the self. The desires are different to you. Greed is different to you. Hatred is different to you. Yeah. It's not the Atma, because hatred can change, malice can change, desires change, greed can change. All these things, attachment changes. One time we're attached to somebody, the next minute we're not, because we're not in good relations with them. So why is it that we're different to the self? It does not give any of these signals during deep sleep as well, when I clearly exist without these. So where is desire in deep sleep? Where is attachment in deep sleep? Where is pain in deep sleep? Where is pleasure in deep sleep? They do not exist. If you think about it, in dreams you may have desire, but in deep sleep you don't. In deep sleep you don't even desire to have a good night's rest, or that when you wake up in the morning you'll be, up and about, jolly and all that. Yeah, that doesn't happen. So your existence does not depend on anything like attachment, pain, pleasure, malice, greed, desires. And because it doesn't depend on those things, it's different from all those. It's different from every one of those things. So that's one way to understand it too. So there, Adi Shankaraji goes further in 34. He says, I am without attributes and actions, eternal, without any doubt, unstained, changeless, formless, ever free and pure. Beautiful. Again, if this is stirring my being right now, this, when I'm reading this, it's really speaking to my heart. So what's being explained here is, as I am beyond intellect, so I'm devoid of the three gunas, the three attributes, sattva, rajas, and tamas, which constitute it. So we're no longer the three gunas. I'm without sense organs like eyes, legs, hands. So I'm actionless. I exist in and beyond the three states, waking, dream, and deep sleep. So I'm eternal. Remember, consciousness does not belong to those three states. It is beyond those three. I'm without mind, which does incessant thinking. So I'm thoughtless. Awareness is thoughtless. Awareness does not think of thoughts. As I'm without parts, I'm unattached. Awareness is one. There's no two-ness in awareness. I'm devoid of the subtle body, so I am without any defects. I do not possess any organs of physical body, so I am formless. I'm beyond the bondage of Maya and not related to its manifestations, so I'm eternally free. This is a great way to understand Maya as being manifestation rather than creation. Remember, in Hinduism, there is no creation, there is only manifestation. This world, this existence is manifested, it's not created. There is no creator creating anything, it is manifested. It exists upon itself. It powers its own existence. And its power does come from Brahman, hence it's one with Brahman, but what I want to say is that there's no separate creator. It's manifest. Therefore, it can unmanifest at any time. Yeah? It's an appearance that can disappear at any time, that can dissolve away at any time. So I'm devoid of the tendencies of the internal mental apparatus, which includes the mind, intellect, ego, and memory. So I am without attachment and aversion, rag and dvesh, hence pure. So likes and dislikes, attractions and detractions. So the person is beyond those things. So these few verses, verse 30 onwards, have been incredibly deep, and we haven't finished yet. They require a lot of contemplation. And if we contemplate upon this even more, we will get further in our spiritual journey. And that's the whole point, is to enjoy the spiritual journey. So, like space, verse 35, this is, like space, I pervade everything, external and internal. I am unfaltering, always the same everywhere, pure, unattached, stainless, and steady. Okay, now let me explain this. At one time, we discarded everything and was left with absolutely nothing at all, and the only thing that remained was our consciousness, our awareness. Right now, Adi Shankarji says in verse 85, like space, I pervade everything external and internal. So what happens here is when we bring everything back into existence, we understand that everything is made up of this consciousness, of this pure awareness, this formless. So in this timeless realm, there's no spatial or temporal boundaries. In my changeless nature, there is nothing less or more. That which exists in that reality remains forever. And this is the way to see that everything remains as it is. In fact, this highlights the shared being aspect that we talk about, that it pervades everything external and internal. Therefore, it's the shared being of everything. This awareness is the shared being. Is contained in this awareness. It is this awareness. It is this consciousness. And this is how we can understand it. Very beautiful verse. And then the final verse here for this chapter is 36. I am indeed that supreme reality, Brahman, which is eternal, pure, totally free, one, indivisible bliss, without a second, imperishable, knowledge, infinite, or even beyond it. Very interesting, very deep as well. So beyond the three states of time, past, present, and future, past, present, and future, beyond these three, I exist. Remember, awareness is beyond past, present, and future. Yeah. The best way to experience awareness is to be in the now, but awareness is beyond now as well. I am not connected with the impurities arising out of ignorance, so I am pure. Remember, the impurities of the mind is not what you are. This Atma, this Brahman, is impure because it's not in ignorance. It doesn't believe it to be anything different. It knows itself completely. I'm totally free of the situations that fate brings before me. Whatever life brings. Fine. One has no problem with it. Yeah? It doesn't matter what fate brings. It's okay. Life has to occur as it is. Life has to do things as it must. That's fine. We move forward. I do not possess any differences within me, whether homogeneous, heterogeneous, or internal. So I am one, uninterrupted and indivisible bliss. I am the truth which does not alter at any time, that which does not require any external light for its illumination, because it's self-existent, it lights its own self, it's self-illuminated. That which does not require any external light for its illumination, rather illuminates them all. I am that shining knowledge. It is this Brahman that gives light to everything. Yeah, that is the light of everything. I'm without any end and complete in myself, so I am infinite. This supreme reality, which is ever glorious like this, I am no different from it. So this is how we can understand this concept of Neti Neti. So verses 30 to 36 of Atma Bodh specifically talk about Neti Neti, and that's what we really are. That is our real existence. That is who we really are. Okay, I hope we. So that's Neti Neti. If you have any questions, you can write them down. Um, if not, I'll carry on with meditative practices because it's not that long of a chapter. Um, yeah, okay. So let's go to 37. Um, and this chapter is meditative practice. So, thus, the continuous practice of the awareness that I am the supreme reality, Brahman, myself, destroys the distractions caused by ignorance, just as a medicine destroys the disease. Again, using metaphors, examples to help us to understand what this knowledge does to us, what this awareness does to us. So, just as the right medicine cures the disease along with its root cause, symptoms, and consequences, the meditation on the statement, I am Brahman, destroys the Maya and its manifestation. Assumptions that I am the doer of actions, I am the reaper of actions, and the passions like attachment and aversion. So, let's go into that a little bit. So we know that the right medicine cures the disease, along with its root cause, the symptoms, and the consequences. Likewise, meditation on the statement Aham Brahmasmi or Tattvamasi or any of the four Mahavakyas, or I am this boundless awareness, I am formless awareness, even that destroys Maya and its manifestation. So Maya is the power of that manifestation. We understand that that illusion is not real; it's changing. So we understand that the influence dissolves away. Assumptions that I am a doer of actions, that goes away. I'm the reaper of actions, and the passions like attachment and aversion. We get rid of all those things. So that is ultimately what it is. So that's how we can understand. If we understand that we're this formless awareness, that we are this supreme reality, the more we do that, the more we get ourselves away from the distractions that take us away from spirituality or take us away from understanding who we really are. To understand who we really are is to remain in that formless awareness. That's what we have to continuously practice upon. Yeah. So if you ever feel that you need to understand what you really are, understand that you are this formless awareness. Keep going back to that. Invest your time in this, because the more you do, the more you associate with this awareness, the more you identify as this awareness, the easier this path becomes, the more beautiful this path becomes for you. And that's the main purpose. So, verse 38, staying in a secluded place without any attachments and controlling the senses, one should meditate on that non dual reality without thinking of anything else. Beautiful. Again, these words that are being said, they can change your life, they can transform your spiritual practice. Where once your spiritual practice may be of rituals, but now it can be of realization. This is what can happen if we understand the message of Atma Bodha, if we can understand what Adi Shankaraji is pointing to us. So staying in a secluded place, try to get yourself away from distractions. Not saying you have to live forever alone, but just for a few moments. Unfortunately, sometimes that can be when we're in the restroom. We find that's the only time we can be alone. Say you have a busy household. But some of us may be lucky where we get to have a bit of quiet time throughout the day. This is when you can do it. So when it's saying secluded place, don't go. It doesn't mean you go off to a jungle or a cave. It can be in your own home. Just be in a place where there's limited distractions. You can't get rid of every distraction, but where there's limited distraction. And most of all, keep your phone away. That's the most important thing. That's the biggest distraction in today's day and age. So stay in a secluded place. So to avoid distraction from other people, stay in a quiet place. To avoid the distraction due to desires, abandon the attachment towards all external objects. So don't be attached to anything external. Remember that. To avoid the distraction during a long time practice, control the sense organs. So the senses may want to um, start searching for things. For example, you may be meditating, then you may hear traffic outside, you may hear sirens, and suddenly your mind is thinking, oh, check out what's going on out there. Maybe there's an accident. Maybe there's a cop um, chasing a car, maybe chasing a criminal. Like the mind comes up with all these stories and therefore distracts you. So here we have to abandon all the we have to make sure we control the sense organs. So when the 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 ears hears the sounds of the sirens, or you smell the baking of a cake, you don't get distracted. You stay in your place and you continue to focus and meditate on Aham Brahmasmi, or on this non-dual reality. So leaving all these distractions, one should meditate on the real self, this pure awareness, with complete focus without thinking of anything else. This has to be your everything. This has to be this is what you must focus upon. This must be what you continuously keep thinking about 100% of the time, as much as possible. I am this non dual reality. There is only this non dual reality, this formless awareness. That is the only thing. Keep focusing upon that. The more we focus upon that, the more we will associate with it, the more this becomes not our realization or our understanding alone, it becomes what we are. Yeah, that is the whole purpose of this, is to understand what you really are, is to understand you are this Atma. Now, the next verse. A wise person should dissolve the entire visible world in his Atma, or awareness, and should meditate through his intellect on the self alone, which is like this ever stainless, spotless space. Yeah. So thank you for the likes. Um, let me. So whatever we observe in the external world is basically a series of images on our intellect. When our intellect becomes pure by relinquishing attachments and aversions, it grasps the formless behind the transitory images, and reality shines through it. This makes the external world look like a dream. It loses its significance. Okay, the world doesn't disappear, it loses its significance. This is the beauty. This is what it's all about. This last line. So when we So with our intellect, it becomes pure by relinquishing attachment and aversion, rag and dvesh, our likes and dislikes, our attractions, and things that kind of deflect. There's a word that I'm looking for that begins with a D. Um, Attractions and repulsions. So not even D, with an R. Whatever attracts us or repulses us, we relinquish that. We grasp the formless behind all transitory images. Yeah, we see the formless behind all forms. And we see that formless awareness shining through it. This makes the external world look like a dream. It loses its significance. And this is so true. When we see the formless behind all forms, why would we say that everything we see is real? We know is, for example, once you wake up from the dream world disappears. Likewise, once you understand the formless, the forms disappear. Not saying that you will not see the forms, but the significance of the forms disappear. Therefore, how can there be raga dvesh? How can there be repulsion or attraction. They cannot be. So that's a wonderful way that Adi Shankaraji has explained. So effects are merged back into their causes. So the earth element dissolves into the water element. Water gets absorbed in the fire element. The fire gets extinguished in the air element. The air gets lost in the space element. Space dissolves in the fundamental nature, and this nature dissolves into the supreme. The supreme reality, which is identical to our real self, remains unchanged as ever. So this Atma remains forever. This Atma remains pure. This Atma is everything. The supreme reality is everything. Your formless awareness, this formless awareness is everything. It's always unchanged. It is there beyond the five elements, beyond the five senses, beyond our thoughts, beyond our images that we have of memories. It's beyond our emotions. It remains there forever. It's changeless, constantly there. It is always free. It is liberated already. And with solid practice of what we've discussed today in these 3 chapters of Atma Bodh, especially with Neti Neti and meditative practice, so from verses 30 to 39, if we understand this deeply, we will go far ahead in our spiritual journey. We will move so far forward, it would be unbelievable. So that is what we need to understand. And then next time, we will go through self-realization, vision of the wise, and then maybe liberation in this life and nature of reality. So we may look at all those things depending on what we do next time. So let me think. Yeah, we'll do that next time. So thank you for listening. Thank you for attending this. We'll end it here. And if you have any questions, do write them in the comments. Do like this video. Do sign up to my Patreon if you'd like to support the podcast and the work that I do here. And what we'll do, we'll continue to look at Atma Bodh. And then after we've done that, there are a few people who you've asked me to look at. So we'll do reaction videos to those. And we'll look at more of the pseudo non-dualist and ensuring that we can catch some of the issues with the philosophy even further. But yes, I've never read the scripture, but I feel it resonates with me and gives me a deeper understanding of Shang King Taoism to such an extent that I may have to make some TikToks comparing them. That'd be really beautiful, and I'll be looking forward to that. You see, all the Dharmic texts are essentially sometimes the language can differ also based on translations and the translator, but essentially what we're pointing to is actually the same thing. We may approach it in different ways, we may call it different things, but it's really the same thing. And it's all about what philosophy works for you. And whatever philosophy works for you, you should definitely adhere to that and stay focused upon that. And whatever can help you go further in your spiritual journey, take that on board. In my opinion, there should be nothing off the table when it comes to you and your spirituality. You have to put all your effort, all your focus, and take whatever helps you to get you to the point where you can say that there is only this formless awareness, or there's only the Tao, or there's only Brahman, or there's only God's presence. I'm even happy with people saying that. At the end of the day, the whole point of spirituality is to liberate yourself from the wrong identification that you're just this body and mind. So that's the whole purpose. But yeah, thank you very much for attending, everyone. I shall see you next time. Do like, comment, and subscribe to this channel, and we shall see you next time. Maybe I'll be here tomorrow, and I do want to finish this Atma board this week, but if not, we'll probably finish it next week, if we're not able to complete it this week. So, thank you very much for attending. I shall soon. Take care. Bye.